Everyone, hello, online people. I'll try to make it quick as I think we're all desperate for coffees. Okay, so I want to start by giving you some examples of the kind of music that's played around the world. And first, we're going to travel to the US.
In this free world, meanwhile, Georgie Paul, you sending me threats. Save your breath, you couldn't beat a flight of steps. Try that.
And to Brazil. In South Korea. As you can tell, that there's a lot of diversity in music around the world, and it's estimated that around 2 million songs are newly released on Spotify every year. And as evident from this this session's talk, studying music in a data-driven way has become a sort of popular topic among Cultural Revolution researchers and music cognition people. And but the problem is that we have to mainly rely on this limited sets of data sets and these have this things in common, that they're all mainly from Western artists with English lyrics. So this has negative consequences because the kind of machine learning models that's embedded in platforms like Spotify to give you recommendations for new songs and so on, they're trained on these data sets. And Brett already beat me to this meme already, but then we don't want to design models that's racist and only reflect only a subset of our population. So in my PhD work, I want to move away from this narrow proportion of the world and basically expand to as many countries as possible, and trying to kind of look at what kind of music exists around the world, how did they change over time, and what kind of conclusions we can draw from it. So mainly I'm interested in about this diversity, the cross-cultural differences there may be, the dynamics and evolution, and how that may have shaped the way we perceive music depending on our cultural background. So to do this, I want to introduce you to the global pop dataset, which is going to become open access. The database is composed by scraping lots and lots of websites of weekly chart data around the world. We digitized several books, and we manually transcribed archival copies of magazine copies using crowdsourced workers. And we also bought some data from companies. So in total, then, as a result, we have a very rich data set of 4 million weekly chart entries with 250,000 unique songs since the 1950s and across 51 countries. So for each of these songs, we have also matched the data to extensive list of platforms, and some of them are listed here. And then after doing that, we have this large amount of data that we can look at music in various different perspectives. And for the sake of this talk, I'm going to be focusing on these two today. So first of all, music information retrieval. Music information retrieval is essentially an automatic music analysis tools that people have developed over the past 10 years, mainly. And this allows you kind of get acoustic estimates about the mood of the song, or the kind of more low-level features like loudness and so on. So now with this data set, what we can do is we first deploy an army of cloud PCs to search for the raw audio on the internet, and then we use various different state-of-the-art music processing libraries to analyze them, and we also develop some in-house tools to suit certain specific analysis that we want to do. So now we can look at, for example, how loudness changed over time. And then for different countries, we can see that the loudness sort of like stayed flat from the 1990s, but then since the 1990s, it starts going up and up, and it starts plateauing around the 2010. And if we kind of zoom in on this, we can see this this period where it's so-called the loudness war happened, and that's a dramatic difference. The song duration has been the longest in the 1980s, and it sort of it forms this inverted U shape, and this seems to be pretty much the same around the world, except the outlier here is Japan, and they seem to have longer songs. The kind of time signatures before the 80s was a mix of 3/4 and 4/4, but then since then onwards, it seems that most countries all stick to 4/4. The tempo seems to vary quite a lot. And for example, here we'd see that Japan has an average BPM that's around 5 BPM higher than the rest of the world. And Argentina seems to have the slowest music. So we can also look at things like danceability. Did music become more danceable? Whether that means anything, and we'll get onto that later. Music may have become less sad in different places. But again, as you may wonder, that how robust are these algorithms anyway? What does it all mean by danceability and sadness? And we already saw that these machine learning models are trained on this Western data set. So are they even reflective of the general population around the world? So we've been starting doing this extensive validation exercise where we actually gather music around the world and ask people in these different places to give subjective ratings about the mood and so on. And then we want to kind of compare that to the machine estimates to see if there's any kind of cultural biases in the model. So far, it seems like that there isn't any cultural bias that we've detected, at least in the context of pop music. But then we do highlight that there is this substantial gap between the current music information retrieval models compared to how the agreement between people. So there is room for improvement into making these models better. So now we're going to move on to lyrics. And the lyrics collection, we get the lyrics from large databases like genius.com and lyrics.com. But then we also try to kind of scrape from this more country-specific websites. And that significantly increases the coverage of non-English language songs. So in this pipeline, we were able to identify 180,000 out of the 250,000. We use some other processing pipeline. And then once we do that, we can do fun things like asking questions like, are lyrics becoming more repetitive? And to do this, I calculate the repetitiveness by essentially the compression size of the text. So when you zip a text, it compresses the file, and that basically tells you how much repetition is in the text. So I'm defining this repetitiveness as the original size divided by the compressed size. And if we do that, and if we see the kind of trends over time, for English songs, we see that the songs have become more repetitive over time. And certainly it sort of spiked up since the 2000s. And now we can do this for all different languages. And then if we see for different languages, we see that this is not always the case. We see that English, maybe Korean, Portuguese, they have a similar inclining trend. But then, for example, German, Spanish, they sort of stayed flat over time. We can also ask questions like, are lyrics becoming more simple? And traditionally, linguistics people have looked at this by using lexical density, which is the richness of the vocabulary within the song. And then if we see that, we see some kind of declining trends for some languages. But this kind of story overturns when we look at the kind of entropy across all the songs within a set population of year. So meaning that within the song, there may be less vocabulary diversity, but then as a population within a year, there's more unique number of words that people are using. So lastly, what are the topics that people sing about? And to do this, we can't rely simply on descriptive statistics anymore. We need to kind of look at the entire embedding space. And to do this, we use a model called top-to-vec, where we basically fire each of the sentence into this low-dimensional space. And then we find the kind of high-density regions in this UMAP space and try to find what kind of topics exist. And to show you some of them, for example, the English topics that comes up very frequently is that this American value and this teenage drama of boyfriends and girlfriends breaking up. And then about country life and about nature. about seasons and about Jesus. And then now we can do this for other languages, obviously, and I only looked at Korean because that's the only other language that I speak. But then we also find some very similar topics, obviously, like love and breakups and so on. But then there's also this kind of predominant topic about success and idols. And they also have nature topic, but the kind of metaphors that they use within nature is very different to English. And there's bunch of topics about love and breakups, and there's a few different branches of it, which is quite interesting to see. And I would like to kind of quantify this to give a more holistic picture across many languages in a more quantitative way. So this is the team, and yeah, thank you.